this is the Great Giana Sisters. And as you can probably tell, this is a Super Mario Brothers clone. This game came out in 1987, so 2 years after Super Mario Brothers. And pretty much the developers said, you know, or the publisher at least, we want to make a game just like Nintendo's Super Mario Brothers, but legally distinct. And, well, apparently it wasn't legally distinct enough. As you can imagine, Nintendo saw this, pretty much just, you know, gave them like a cease and desist thing. They didn't actually sue the company or anything yet, but the company, I guess, preemptively pulled the game from store shelves. So this game wasn't on store shelves for very long, and it was quickly pulled off store shelves. And then, obviously, I guess that probably got it more attention than it otherwise maybe would have gotten. So this game became pretty popular with pirates. Yar. Yeah, so anyways, this game was released for the Commodore 64 here, but also the Amiga and the Atari ST. I've never seen the 16-bit versions. I've only ever seen this, the Commodore 64 version. Seems to be the most popular version, and I guess that makes sense. In the late 80s, most people would have had a Commodore 64, or at least I would think more people had a Commodore 64 than had the Amiga and the Atari ST probably combined, especially again in 1987, 1988, late 80s, and probably pretty easy just to copy that floppy. So I don't know how many of you owned a Commodore 64 back in the day, had this game. I think it was only released in PAL territories. I could be wrong. My version that I got here seems to be a PAL version. If I run it on an NTSC, well, we're in an emulator here. We're in the Vice. I think it's the Vice core. But we're emulating a PAL Commodore 64. If I set it to an NTSC 60 Hertz Commodore 64, it does play a little faster, but it's kind of glitchy. So, again, pretty sure this is just a PAL release, 50 Hertz, but again, could be wrong, not too sure. I really like this game. I was going to say that. Initially, you know, the first time I played this, I kind of laughed at it. You know, the jumping physics are kind of wonky. When you land on an enemy, you just continue to fall to the floor at the same speed, so it kind of looks like you just fell through the enemy. It doesn't feel like you jumped on the enemy like in Super Mario Brothers, and you kind of have a little bit of a bounce when you hit an enemy. So little things like that in here just feels like a little bit maybe cheaper. But once I got used to the controls, I started to really like this game. Now, I'm a huge fan of Super Mario Land, and you know, kind of the same thing. Super Mario Land has kind of janky jumping physics. It's very floaty, and yet at the same time, you gotta be like really precise with the controls and the jumping. There's a lot of little precise jumps in here, like the one there. And also the power-ups in this are like similar but different. So again, just like Super Mario Land, you have these kind of like floatier, jankier jumping physics. Doesn't really feel like Super Mario Brothers, and the power-ups are like similar but different. And you know, in Super Mario Land, instead of the fireballs, you shoot, they're supposed to be like rubber balls or something, and they bounce all over the place. In this one, you're shooting bubbles, but it's well, they start off more like the fireballs, where you shoot it and it goes forward. But then you power up. If you get a second power up for the bubbles, then they start bouncing around, and they act more like the rubber balls in Super Mario Land. I don't find that very useful here, so I'm not really sure what the point is. I don't think it makes them any more powerful. Maybe they do more damage, but just the fact that they can bounce all over the place isn't very helpful. You can get another power-up for the bubbles, where they'll become like heat-seeking bubbles, and you just gotta fire and they'll go right to the enemy. And that's oddly enough by finding a fruit So if you're wondering what the fruit is for, I initially thought, oh, this must just be for points, extra points or something. No, the fruits power up your bubbles. It makes them heat-seeking bubbles. There's a couple other weird power-ups in this game that at first I didn't know what they were doing, because there's one that looks like a clock, and, well, you would think the clock is adding time to the countdown timer. Every level you start off with like 99 seconds and it's counting down, and obviously if you don't make it to the exit in time, it's like a game over, just like Super Mario Brothers. So you find these little clock like power-ups once in a while, and it's like, of course, it's to add more time to the countdown timer, is what you would think, but nope. Apparently the clock is to freeze enemies on the screen. There's also a bomb power-up that you can get, that when you use it, it will kill all the enemies on the screen. I actually don't know how to use those power-ups because I'm playing with a controller, and the instruction manual says that you use spacebar to use the clock and the bomb. Speaking of using the controller, I am using a Super Famicom or Super NES controller, just plugged into like a USB to Super Nintendo dongle. And I started playing the game, and like a lot of Commodore 64 games, in this game, up is jump. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Commodore 64 only has, like, the controller port itself only has one action button. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe it's just that most Commodore 64 controllers only had one. Joysticks, really, I should say. Only had one action button. So usually you would have a joystick and one action button, which would be fire. So in this game, if you're using a controller, normally, or a joystick, normally the one action button would be to fire your bubbles. And again, up is jump, which again was pretty common on a lot of Commodore 64 games. I was playing this game for like 20 minutes with the controller, using up on the D-pad to jump, and honest to God, like, my thumb was actually getting sore after 20 minutes. So it's harder on your thumb. It's also, it's a little bit harder to like move around during the jump. While you're jumping, you know, you gotta, you know, press diagonals, which is even harder, pressing even harder. And so I played for like 20 minutes, my thumb started to hurt, and then I was like, I gotta see how like easy it is to rebind. You know, obviously I know you can rebind buttons from the, you know, the keyboard or whatever. We could rebind up to one of the face buttons, but, you know, let's see how easy that's going to be. Well, it's very easy. The Commodore 64 emulator almost expects that you're going to want to rebind up to A. So in this case, B on my Super Nintendo or Super Famicom controller is fire, and normally A does nothing. You have to press up to jump. But if you go into, I'm in retro again. I'm in the Vice core in RetroArch, and if you go into core options and go into input and scroll all the way down, there's literally an option there to turn A to up. So you'll have B is fire, A is up, and then just like that, now you have a face button. You know, B is fire, A is jump. Makes it a lot easier. It's like a game changer, pretty much a necessity. So God bless these emulators. Again, playing this on a real Commodore 64 with like a joystick, that would be really difficult. Like some of these jumps, like right here, you gotta land right on the edge of that pipe because there's like a fire in the middle of it. It's like actually a little bit harder than it looks. It does require some precise jumping. And I cannot imagine playing this with a joystick. You know, a stiff joystick to move and then having to press up and diagonals to jump. Yeah, no thanks. Being able to set A to up or A to jump, again, it's a game changer. Pretty much a necessity. So definitely if you're going to play this, I highly recommend doing that. Pretty much first and foremost, go into your settings and look for that option. Otherwise, I guess that's it. Like I said, the power-ups are a little different. The lightning bolt is sort of your your power up to throw the bubbles. If you get that, the next one you get will be a double lightning bolt. And again, that's just so that your bubbles will bounce around. And then if you get a fruit, then your bubbles will become heat-seeking. And yeah, I think that's about it. And then again, the clock and the bomb. So the power-ups are similar to Super Mario Brothers, but different. They definitely did try to make things different enough. But again, look at this boss fight. It's kind of set up like the Bowser boss fights in Super Mario Brothers, in that you don't have to defeat the enemy or the boss here. You just got to get past them, just like Bowser on the bridge. I believe you can kill them with the fireballs, but it does take a lot of hits, at least if I remember correctly. So basically just trying to get past them, again, just like Super Mario Brothers. And I mean, even the little Goombas in this, whatever is supposed to be the little Goombas, this looks like a little Goomba with like cat ears on it. And again, you got the pipes, but I don't think you could go down them. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I couldn't find any of the pipes that you went down, and I tried most of them until giving up. So maybe some of them you can go down, but definitely doesn't seem like there's as many as in Super Mario Brothers. Again, they definitely tried to make things different, but did they make things different enough? Hard to say. It's like, you know, can you not make a platforming game where you break bricks and get power-ups? I mean, obviously you can, and a lot of companies have done it since then, but I don't know. 2 years after Super Mario Brothers came out, and just taking a quick look at this, you know, the color of the background in the sky, and then, you know, the brown bricks that you're jumping on. You know, the first power-up makes you big where you can break bricks. Yeah, it's pretty similar. And I don't know, would they have lost? Would Nintendo have won a lawsuit had they sued? I'd be curious to know, but I guess we'll never know, because again, I don't think it got to that point. I think they just, the publisher just decided to pull this game off the shelves before it got to that point. But yeah, and again, every fourth level is an underground level, and with a boss fight at the end. I really like this game. It's fun. Once you get past the floaty jumping, you almost forget about it. At this point, I've been playing the game for an hour. Kind of just completely feels natural. And again, the music is super fun. Gotta love that Sid Chip tunes. I don't play a lot of Commodore 64 games, so when there is one that's actually fun and playable, and this is, yeah, it's great, and definitely recommend this game if you're a fan of Super Mario Land like I am. You're gonna love this game, so definitely check it out. Whether it's the Commodore 64 version or the one of the 16-bit versions on the Amiga or the Atari ST. I've never seen those versions, but gotta assume they look better. I don't know if they play better, but yeah, either way, check out one of these versions. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. I certainly have been, but definitely got to change the controller input settings so that you can use a face button to jump. Again, that's a game changer, but there you go. The great Giana sisters. Honestly, really fun game. I really like it. So, see you guys later.